Kyle Pitts is going to start getting work at wide receiver? Duh.
This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tanitra Batiste. Alongside me are Jarvis Davis, Aaron Freeman, and Tori McElhaney. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And the Atlanta Football Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So it's time to go back around the NFC South, and throwbacks are back. Which one's your favorite? We'll talk about that and what's going down in Flowery Branch as we get set for what I like to call Christmas in July. But first, Jarvis, Zac Robinson told D'Orlando Ledbetter of the AJC that Kyle Pitts will not only be learning some tight end, but also some wide receiver. So are you good with that as we look for KP to maybe bounce back big this season?
I'm good with it because here's the thing. Like, I think that Zac Robinson is going to have to assess this offense and assess the personnel that he has and see what he has to be able to come up with what the style of this Sean McVay offense looks like, right? Because we understand that Sean McVay about 90% of the time runs 11 personnel. And I think a lot of people kind of forget, if you go back into when he first came in and then Cooper Kupp came into the fold, and he was trying to figure out a way to how he can get Cooper Kupp on the field more so because of that 11 personnel package was only used in like third and long situations and more so down in the red zone. So he's like, okay, how can I get this guy on the field? Let's run 11 personnel more because the 3 wide receiver set, right? So, and then it kind of just evolved from there and it kind of morphed into, hey, this is the type of offense that we like to run. So I feel Zac Robinson has to do the same exact thing, saying come in, not with a mindset of I'm going to run a lot of 11 personnel, but coming in and saying, okay, here's what I have. Here's what I can work with. Okay, let me start with the guy that can potentially play wide receiver and tight end for me in different formations and kind of throw defenses off as far as whether or not they're going to know whether or not they're going to know if they're going to run the football, because that's the thing that right there, that with Kyle Pitts having that versatility, you'll be able to, it'll be kind of throw defenses off. But I think that as long as Zac Robinson assesses what he has and not come in with the mindset, hey, I'm going to run this, I feel like I'm all on board for it, because I feel like it'll benefit Kyle Pitts in the short term and in the long term as far as getting paid.
Tori, what do you think about that, expanding Kyle Pitts' repertoire, for lack of a better term, to be a tight end, to do some wide receiver type things, especially in a year that's so critical for what we need to see from him?
Here's the thing, and I hope this doesn't come across weird or like rude or anything, but like none of this is new. Like I saw all of this stuff about like, oh, Kyle Pitts is going to be learning like wide receiver and tight end. And like, it kind of became this huge story, even from like a national media perspective. It was kind of aggregated a lot. And I was like, he's kind of been doing that always. Like nothing really changes. I don't know why this has become kind of this weird news. Like this has always been how, like, he's always been running routes. Like I don't get like why this is now something where it's like, ooh, like Zac Robinson's coming in and he's teaching Kyle Pitts to be a wide receiver and tight end. That's not the case. This is something that's already been established well before Kyle Pitts even got to the professional level. I think for me, like it's all about, with Kyle, it's like trying to figure out the best way to utilize his specific skill set, which, as we've talked about since the moment that he was being drafted, it's like, how can he be a mismatch in the red zone, inside the 20? Like that is something that is so important. And it's a part of his game that has not been truly tapped into at the professional level. And it is something that is going to take him from being, you know, kind of what he's been the last like couple of years coming off of the injury to kind of being this all-star type of player, this all-pro type of player. That's the dimension that he needs to step into, is how he can be this like true problem for opposing secondaries in the red zone and in the end zone. That's the next step for Kyle Pitts. And so it's Zac Robinson's responsibility and this entire offensive coaching staff to put him in the best positions possible, because kind of like what Jarvis is saying, this is a huge year for Kyle Pitts in terms of what type of contract is he going to have when he is no longer on that rookie deal. Because that's there's a huge conversation to be had about what does his pay structure look like, whether he is used as a tight end, receiver, whatever. He's obviously a weapon in the pass game. So how does that kind of correlate to what his production looks like, what his targets looks like, and at a later date, what his contract looks like, what his second contract looks like? So all of that, I'm just going to step off my soapbox now, because that's kind of like, I apologize. I hope that no one thought I was kind of overstepping.
No, I think that you make a great point in questioning why this has become such a big deal. But my mind went back to two things. My mind went back to Jimmy Graham, one of the first in that space where it was like, okay, how are we going to pay him? Are we going to pay him as a tight end? Or are we going to pay him as a wide receiver? Like, how's that going to go? And even with Travis Kelce, you kind of still hear those kinds of questions and that kind of point of like that hybrid, if you will. And I think Kyle Pitts, being the unicorn that he is, and being that we've not seen him be that guy who can function successfully or be effective at tight end / wide receiver, I think he's maybe the most intriguing story in that space that we've seen in a long time. Maybe the national media might want to do a better job of explaining that's kind of the undertone. But I think your point is very valid, Tori, that why are we having this much commentary about it? But I think it kind of goes back to a little bit of what Jarvis said, which is the commentary is really, we know where he is as far as showing improving this year for what life looks like for him beyond, and being able to negotiate for himself, in addition to, of course, being effective in a Zac Robinson offense that challenges him, but also that age-old question about pay him closer to tight end, pay him closer to wide receiver, pay him in the middle because he's a hybrid. I think that's a part of this too.
Yeah, and I think to add to what Tori was saying, when you talk about what Arthur Smith was trying to do, when he knew like the severity of the injuries that Kyle Pitts was dealing with last year, because I felt like he lined up at wide receiver too much last year, because he wasn't 100%. He wasn't a threat to beat any corner that was lining up out there, because of he was slowed or was hampered, and he had to going through the whole mental aspects of coming back from an injury. So when you think about it from that standpoint, I feel like he was put in a bad situation. He wasn't put in a situation to be able to succeed. So that's why I really harp on Zac Robinson, putting him in position to be successful, now that he's healthy, and hopefully looking like somewhat like he was looking in his rookie year when he was with Matt Ryan, who was obviously on the back end of his career, but still more than capable quarterback.
Aaron, what do you think about that, Zac Robinson, or really this Falcons team and Raheem Morris putting Kyle Pitts in a position where he could be utilized as tight end, he could be utilized as wide receiver?
Yeah, well, my initial reaction was the same as Tori. I was like, why is this a big story? Like, this is, basically a wide receiver last year. Like, I think after the first month of the season, I could probably count on one hand how many times he lined up in the 3-point stands at tight end.
Sure.
But yeah, like I've been recently watching the Rams offense, and there's sort of and this touches upon a little bit of what Jarvis was talking about, where there's such a core component of the Rams offense over the years with Cooper Kupp lining up in the slot, and not only as a pass catcher, but also his run blocking, which was a big part of that Rams offense. And when you look at the slot options the Falcons have with Ray McLeod and Rondale Moore, you're probably not expecting those guys to sort of bring that type of physicality in the run game in the ways that Cooper Kupp does if you're porting over that Rams offense. And so I think that's kind of the perfect role for Kyle Pitts, to kind of be the slot sort of Cooper Kupp role, especially on some of those early downs when the Falcons are going to sort of run the ball and bring that juice as a blocker, not to mention, as Tori mentioned, his ability as a pass catcher. So I think this makes total sense once you start to like dig a little bit deeper into the Rams offense, where you're kind of like, okay, well, if we're just porting it over, Drake London's kind of going to be the Puka Nacua type of guy that's sort of getting a bulk of the targets. And, Kyle Pitts can kind of dabble a little bit as that Cooper Kupp role. And maybe you port over a little bit of like Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee. And then, you look at Kevin O'Connell's offense in Minnesota, that's a derivative, and like some of the ways that they use TJ Hawkinson. So I think Kyle Pitts is going to be a key part of this offense. And I think a big part of it is going to be his ability to dictate matchups, where if defenses are like, okay, they're playing Kyle Pitts as a slot receiver, essentially, do we line up in base to deal with the tight end, or do we line up in nickel? And if teams are going to play it like we're going to put a cornerback out there, then that gives Zac Robinson sort of be like, okay, we're just going to run the ball down your throat, and your nickel cornerback's not going to be able to get off blocks from Kyle Pitts in the slot. And if teams are like, okay, well, we'll play base with it, and it's like, okay, well, you're going to put a linebacker on Kyle Pitts? Okay, so we're just going to throw the ball, and that guy's not going to be able to mismatch. So I think Kyle Pitts is a real core part of what this offense can do in order to dictate matchups. And so hearing him get these reps at both tight end and wide receiver, I think is a key part of that.
In today's deep dive, we are heading up I-95. Today's Atlanta football party is brought to you by FanDuel. Now, I love sports just like you do. And of course, I never want sports to stop. But as the playoffs have wound down, we get fewer games. And of course, we even had breaks in Major League Baseball. We had breaks. We now have a break in the WNBA. So FanDuel lets you keep the sports going, maybe in a different way whenever you want. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime while you're in the mood to do so. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. Again, it's for all customers. You can get a boost or a bonus daily, and that is for the entirety of the summer. So head over to FanDuel.com to make the most of this opportunity. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, guys, as you know, we've been going around the NFC South, and the Atlanta Sports Party is now touching down in Carolina. We continue the series with our Locked On Panthers host, Julian Council. And Julian, it's year 2 for Bryce Young as QB1. It's year 1 for the offensive weapon the Panthers got in the draft in Xavier Legette. It's also year 1 for Dave Canales as head coach, also known as the QB whisperer. So what are the expectations for Carolina, specifically on offense, knowing the things that they went out to do in free agency, also to get Bryce Young some help up front?
I think the expectations would to be leading in the fourth quarter at some point this season, something they didn't do at all last year, even though they shockingly were able to win 2 games in spite of that. So I think those would be the baseline expectations. Can you actually hold a lead late into the game? Overall, it'll be interesting to see. I think, like last year, this season is all about the development of Bryce Young. Frank Reich and his coaching staff did a terrible job of it. That's why they lasted 11 games last season. That's why Dave Canales, who you mentioned and called the quarterback whisperer for what he did the last 2 seasons in Seattle, Geno Smith resurrecting his career, and with Baker Mayfield, who spent the year prior in Carolina, was hopefully going to be the guy, and that turned out to not be the case. And he played really well last season, is now getting paid in Tampa to be their guy, at least for the next couple of years. So really the expectations, that's to be determined, but the hope for them is that Bryce Young can look more like the number 1 overall pick, and they can get more out of all the investment they put into that position a year ago, with Dave Canales now as a play caller and working directly with Bryce this upcoming season.
Now, Julian, I'm curious, because all last year, all I heard, watching your show, listening to your show, talking about the Panthers, is David Tepper. I've never seen a single individual person just get all the blame in all the planet. And I'm just curious, like, how are Panthers fans feeling like he's kind of been the scapegoat for all the problems the last couple of years with some of these coaching hires? Do they feel like Dave Canales, like, did David Tepper finally get one of these right? Like, what's the situation with Panthers fans feeling like they have this owner that just basically is, torpedoing the team? Or are they in a better place right now heading into this training camp with Dave Canales?
I mean, emotionally, I think the fans are in a better place because the season's about to begin. Like, you can say this every single year. The NFL sells hope better than any of the leagues in North America. Like, let's be honest. They were pretty mad in January, and they thought all the world's going to end. Then Dave Canales comes over. He has this effervescent personality. You can call him a Pete Carroll light and offensive Pete Carroll, just the way he goes about his business. And he's super positive, and that gets people excited again, to where I have people, my barber, constantly saying, hey, I see 10 wins. And I try to talk him off the ledge, but he doesn't want to listen to me. But I get those responses that people believe, all right, the division's still not that great. They don't really buy into Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, which I don't really understand why they wouldn't. And they're thinking, hey, we can get to 8-9 wins and be right back in there. So there's fans who are talking themselves into that. And this is part of the problem. Fans should clearly see this football team's not good. They have expectations that aren't realistic. The team doesn't live up to their unrealistic expectations, and then they're ticked off, which you put yourself in that position. As far as David Tepper goes, he's not a scapegoat. He is the reason. There was nothing wrong with this organization when he took them over. Absolutely nothing wrong with this organization. And they were a team that was coming off playoff berth. They were going to that season in 2018. They still had Cam Newton. He was still healthy. They had Greg Olsen. They had Luke Kuechly. They had Thomas Davis. They had plenty of quality players on Christian McCaffrey on this roster. And they just he has made every wrong decision since then. I don't think keeping Rivera for another year was a bad decision. Moving on from him after that season, it made sense in 2019. But hiring Matt Rule, who had little NFL experience, didn't make a lot of sense. He was a vibes guy, and the vibes weren't great. Bringing in Frank Reich, it kind of made sense, but also there's a reason why Indianapolis moved off of him. We see how retreads typically do in the NFL. Didn't really work out. Hopefully this time works out. And you can look at all the off-the-field stuff, showing up at Dilworth Neighborhood Grill because the sign says, let the coach and GM pick the players and not you, David Tepper. As long as he's here, I'm convinced that this organization is going to continue to be one of the worst in the NFL. Now, the hope is that maybe he takes a step back, allows the coach to coach, and allows the quarterback to do his job, and things turn around. I'm just not that optimistic because David Tepper has given me really little reason to believe that will be the case. But we'll see. Third time's a charm, baby.
Let's kind of rotate the questions back to on the field stuff, even though this has been quite fun and entertaining. I'm curious for you as you're kind of looking at, Bryce Young heading into his second year, going off of Tanitra's question, but what's the most significant area of growth for him from year one to year two that you say, if you're looking at kind of his repertoire of who he is, what he does, what needs to be that area of growth that takes the offense from one point to the next?
I think it's the fundamentals. You think about last year, and there's a great reporting from The Athletic, Joe Person and Diana Rossini tag team to discuss the Hunger Games culture they talked about within the organization, particularly on the offense side of the ball, and how it appeared last year they were more focused on just getting Bryce Young out on the field. They weren't focused on his footwork and timing that to the routes and the concept they ran. They just wanted him out there playing. They didn't really focus on, hey, what are the things that you did well at Alabama, and how can we put that into our offense? And also, is the quarterback actually ready to play in the NFL and in this scheme? So having Bryce work on his footwork, which they've done throughout the offseason, and being able to marry that to the concepts they want to run, I think that's the most important thing for him moving forward. And we have seen glimpses last year, especially the Packers game, where he looked like a dude. And if you get more of that and have him comfortable and really fundamentally sound in a way that they need to play, that I think is the most important thing, at least for Bryce personally, than necessarily all the results that come from this season. Getting the fundamentals down, taking some time, being patient with him, and then making sure the concepts kind of match what he's works best at. I think that's the most important thing for Bryce Young in particular heading into the season.
One thing that, Julian, I'm always a big proponent of guys up front, right? So I kind of follow up with that as far as the offensive line goes. Do you feel like they've done enough to protect him so he can do those things that you talked about?
Here's the issue. If your offensive line's not healthy, you don't have a chance. I think back to the 2021 season. I looked on paper, didn't think it was going to be a good offensive line, and turned out to not be a good offensive line. Why is that? 13 different combinations in 17 games. Even if they were all healthy, I don't think they're a top half the NFL line, but are they one of the worst in the league that year? No. Last season, you looked at it, you had all five of the guys who started in 2022, and they turned things around, had Steve Wilkes as their head coach, and they went to more of a ground and pound play action offense. All five of those guys were back. Problem, though, was Brady Christensen broke his leg week 18 against the Saints. He had to come back in the offseason and get off of that leg injury. Your best offensive lineman, arguably, Austin Corbett, who played right guard, tore his ACL. And he wasn't available for the first 6 weeks of the season as he was on PUP. And when he came back for those 4 games, was a show himself, then hurt his knee yet again. So you have 7 different left guards, 8 different right guards. I think that led to the regression of Ike Ekwonu. When you have a different guy every week where you're like, hi, I'm Ike, nice to meet you. Obviously, you're probably not going to play at a high level. And Bradley Bozeman, who played well for them at center, when there's two different guys next to you every single week, it's hard to perform. So I look at the changes that they made. They got Corbett playing at center. He's never played center in an NFL game. There's a brief period a couple of years ago with the Rams. He was there in OTAs, and then they moved him to right guard, worked out. They won a Super Bowl that year. I don't know if that's why they won a Super Bowl, but maybe it's a part of the reason why they won. But he's been talked about his Nevada head coach dating back to college, said that he was likely going to be a center at some point in time. So they're going to put him there. He's pretty vocal. They brought in Robert Hunt, who's going to be their starting right guard, played well in Miami last year, was a little banged up. They brought in Damian Lewis, who has experience with the coaching staff, as a lot of them come from Seattle, including their assistant offensive line coach. Then Icky's back at left tackle, Tay Moten's back at right tackle. If they stay healthy, this should be an offensive line that can ground and pound. I still have my concerns about whether they can protect, particularly Ike Ekwonu at left tackle, because we saw last year big time regression there. So the O-line, if they're healthy, should be fine. If they're not, and you're throwing Cade Mays and Chandler Zavala and the same guys that struggled last year out there, like every team in the NFL, you're going to have problems.
I want to go to the other side real quick. Now, Brian Burns is a guy that I refer to as Mr. Burns because I had to respect him the way he used to terrorize Atlanta Falcons quarterbacks. So what is the mindset of letting a guy that talented walk out the door?
Yeah, man. I've never seen people be so giddy as far as a fan base to let go of a good player when all they've done is constantly cry about McCaffrey not being here and DJ Moore not being here and still want to give Cam Newton like a third chance here in Carolina. It's just wild to me, the amount of people that were excited to not pay a man and $30 million per year. Granted, it's a lot, because I don't think he's necessarily played at that level, but I think there's a school of thought of you're paying him for what you expect him to do, and he's already played 5 years, and he's the same age as a guy that they traded up in the third round last year in DJ Johnson, who gave them how many? 0 sacks. So you got a 25-year-old project who gave nothing, and you got a guy who's 25 who's already proven back-to-back seasons as a Pro Bowler, and last year didn't play at the highest level. He was thinking about the contract. There's a hold-in heading into that week one again, a game against Atlanta, and he also saw Shaq Thompson go down, J.C. Horn go down, and just as a human being, you want your money. They're not giving it to you. You don't want to get hurt, so maybe you kind of take a little step back. And he still got his money at the end of the day. There's not a lot of logic. It is interesting moving forward this season. I don't know how much they're going to miss Burns this year. Because Clowney, if he gives you what he gave the Ravens last year, where he had a better season than Brian Burns, would also think, was he Baltimore's top guy? Were defensive coordinator or offense coordinators concerned about Clowney as the number one guy last year, like they were Burns in Carolina? No, he's going to have to be that this season. And DJ Woonem is starting off the season, well, at least camp on PUP. DJ Johnson, who did nothing last year, is right now the other outside linebacker. Caleb on Chason has been a bust so far. So there's not anybody else that's going to concern you. And honestly, Clowney shouldn't concern you because he hasn't really lived up to being the number one overall player. Like Myles Garrett, who he played with in Cleveland, that's who he's supposed to be. Hasn't been that. It's been 10 years. Maybe it'll happen this year. He could play well for them, and they might not miss Burns that much this season. But moving forward, I think they're going to miss him because Clowney may not be here after the season. Burns, I think that guy still has 5+ years left in the NFL playing at a high level. But that wasn't something they were interested in as those contracts stalled, and they decided, let's go bring in a guy who has not been that great of a player, but he is a name, though, and he's from the area. So we'll see how it works out.
Well, we'll get to see this new look Panthers team week 6 in Carolina, where the Panthers will be hosting. That's October 13th. And then the Falcons host the Panthers in week 18 in January of 2025. Thanks so much, our guy from Locked on Panthers, Julian Council, for stopping by. Red or black, guys, we'll tell you our favorite and what's next. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is also brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and free. Now, it isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. Now, in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. And 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn.com. 2.5 million small businesses are using LinkedIn for hiring, and so should you. So post your job for free at LinkedIn.com linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, guys. First and foremost, before we talk about the hats that these guys are going to be wearing, training camp is finally here. The Falcons have released their 2024 camp schedule that will see players arrive Wednesday and practice begin Thursday. Now, the schedule is a little lighter this year, just 16 full practice sessions versus 21 last year. Tori, for you, what do you think about that aspect of how the Falcons are approaching camp? But also, what are you most looking forward to?
Yeah, so the first question, I don't really put too much stock in the fact that there's a little less practices. I actually think that's kind of the nature of how things are going to go in the future, trying to ease guys into the season a little bit more, especially if we're kind of talking about the season getting longer. There's no need to wear guys out in August. Also, you think about someone like Kirk Cousins, who's coming off season-ending injury. The Falcons are going to be probably exceptionally easy on him throughout camp. I would be surprised if we see him at all in the preseason for these preseason games. So that's kind of what I make of the less number of true practices. Second question about what I'm most looking forward to. I really, really am intrigued about that second cornerback spot opposite AJ Terrell. That to me is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, starting spot battle, if you will, is who's it going to be, Clark Phillips or Mike Hughes. I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing how that shakes out. And then of course, even like DeMarco Helms and Richie Grant, and kind of seeing how that ebbs and flows throughout training camp as they really figure out what they want to do in the secondary in terms of a starting lineup, but also kind of what the packages look like. So those are kind of, my eyes are very much on the secondary, especially early on in camp. And even honestly, when we get into putting the pads on and going 110%, because that's something we have not seen from this defense. They haven't been able to do that. So those games are going to be very, very important, especially for this defense and especially for the secondary, as they're trying to figure out what that starting lineup could look like.
Yeah. I'm putting the APB out on Troy Andersen. Tori.
Go ahead, Jarvis. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to see what this man's gonna do. He's fully healthy. There's no excuses. This year, coming off an injury, and you showed gave us a little peek into what you could potentially do before you got hurt last year. So I want to be able to see what this cat can do, because as of right now, Nate Landman and Caden Ellis are going to be in that nickel package. So, and they're gonna have to figure out. You're gonna have to figure out a way to get on the field. So that's the matchup, or not matchup necessarily, but as far as position battle, value, as far as where you were drafted. And then Nate Landman is a guy with undrafted free agent, who's coming here and just has been a solid linebacker for you, and we understand what his kind of, downfall is as far as being in coverage, right? He's more of a downhill linebacker guy, TFL type guy. And Troy Andersen is supposed to be that guy to come in and do coverage and be that coverage guy. But can Troy Andersen put it all together? That's what I'm really interested in to see. And I think it was something that we had kind of mentioned before. I think you had mentioned it, T, when we talk about Grady Jarrett. How are they going to ease him in, or are they going to be able to ease him in to the fold? Because he's coming off an injury as well, and I'm interested to see. That's probably why you got a lot of guys who were drafted that can play multiple positions, right? They can play on the end or the defensive end and on the defensive tackle spot. So I feel like those guys are going to get a lot of reps in camp, and Grady Jarrett is probably going to be eased along. I know that for a fact that he's probably not going to like that, but I feel like they're going to take their time with him as well. Not as much as Kirk Cousins, but I feel like they're going to take their time with him as well.
Well, for me, the thing, it's a little disappointing that fans won't be able to get down to training camp, because I was really looking forward to all the daily. Michael Penix looks great. He should be the starting quarterback. That is going to piss off Tori. And I'm just counting down the days till probably that first preseason game in August, where we're probably not going to see Kirk Cousins in the preseason. And then Michael Penix goes out there and goes 12 for 15 in that preseason game.
It's going to happen.
Tori has to spend the next week of doing reports being like, hey, Kirk Cousins is the starting quarterback, not Michael Penix.
I'm going to have to do so much like crowd control.
That entertained me because it's like, it's practice. It's all that stuff. Like, I don't go too crazy for practice. So it's really how other people react to practice that really gets me going. So, Tori having to deal with the quarterback controversy stuff all summer long is the thing that entertains me about training camp. So that's
Dominic Davis and Matt Ryan quarterback controversy. I know you remember that one, Aaron.
Oh God, yeah, that was wild. Just wild.
That was a real thing, by the way, for people who probably turned their nose up. No, people were saying that.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, that's a good one. I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. Like that's every camp, right? Somebody does something that is just utterly and completely spectacular, and then the fans are just like, "Why isn't that guy in the one? Like, why isn't that guy starting? And we need to do this, that, and the third." And then that guy doesn't even like make the cut for like it doesn't even make the final roster. So it's always, there's always at least one. But in this case, to your point, Free, it'll not just be any old quarterback, or I'm sorry, any old player at any old position. No, this will be the one, the millisecond they get to, what is it, Hechinger High, to be able to see the first practice. I think that's when it's going to really be hilarious. Yeah, that's when it's going to be like entertaining and get your popcorn. So speaking of entertaining, everybody always also wants to weigh in every season on what helmets the Falcons actually wear. So the Falcons announced late last week they'll rock the red helmet throwbacks on September 29th against the Saints, all black throwbacks against the Bucs on the 3rd, and then go back to the red helmets on December 22nd when they match up against the Giants. Do you guys have a favorite helmet? I know for me, I kind of like them all. Every uniform I've seen the Falcons put on, not just the helmet, but the uniforms the last couple of years, I think they're all cool. But do you have a favorite?
Give me the red helmets.
Yeah, I really love the red helmets.
Every day, every Sunday. Let's go.
I think about it in terms of like also like as a woman, we don't have very many options usually, like when it comes to like athletic wear, especially like supporting your teams. It's all kind of like pink or bejeweled or V-neck, and it's tight, and I hate it. I will die on the hill that we need more women talking about like women's fashion and sports merchandising. But anywho, that's another soapbox for another day. But I will say is like, I love the way that the red helmets have kind of taken on a life of their own. And I have to give credit where credit's due to like our creative team and our marketing teams, because I always think like the sweatshirts, the t-shirts, the hats that have kind of the red helmet like emblem always look really cool and always look like really clean and crisp and like different. And so from like a marketing standpoint, if I'm kind of thinking fashion standpoint, I always think they do such a good job with that it's like, I don't want the regular stuff. I want the red helmet stuff. If I'm a fan and I want like that merchandise, like that's the cool stuff. That's where all the money's going. If I have money to spend, I'm going to spend it on like red helmet stuff.
Yeah, the Falcons always win when it comes to marketing, promotions, and social media. Always winning.
Yeah, I think that red hat, the red fitted, with it just pops. Like I'm not the biggest fashion person, but I like colors though. Like, come on with the red. I need that. I love the all black. That's
answer. Cool. That's the most man answer I've ever heard. I'm not into fashion, but I love colors. You're like red, blue, black.
Red, blue, black. Little salmon. I throw a little salmon in there every now and then. You know what I'm saying? I was matching my girls this weekend. Tori, come on now. Give me some credit.
I love that.
I took them to church. You know what I'm saying?
We gotta get the matching sets.
We had that. Like, look, I had the salmon. My youngest daughter had the pink on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And my oldest baby had the purple.
There you go.
As long as you didn't have the salmon pants or salmon gators.
Oh no, I ain't doing no salmon pants.
Jarvis's dad. No, I say that because Jarvis's dad is real extra. That's my little friend, Mr. Davis, but he's extra. So I just had to see if Jarvis was extra at church this Sunday.
No, we were very dressed down. My Kinley was actually, she was like, Daddy, I got her, we call it church school, a church class with her kids. And when she got out, because we had, I told him to dress down a little bit because we were going to the skating ring afterwards. And she was just like, she's like, Daddy, I was the only one that had shorts on. I was like, yeah, that's fine. She was like, everybody else had skirts on and stuff. I was like, well, you're fine, baby, because, we had a plan, we just executing the plan. You know what I'm saying? Just follow the plan. We'll be all right. You all good. If anybody got something to say, tell them to talk to Daddy. we'll handle it from there. But other than that, you're good, baby. You know, like, yeah, let's go.
All right, Bree, so the red helmet, is it we'll go with a consensus here with the red helmet.
Yeah, I like the red helmets, but I'll give a little love to the all black because that's the uniforms that when I first started watching the Falcons, that's what they wore. And so I have probably a greater degree of nostalgia for those, all black ones. So I'm looking forward to that. The red helmets are always classic and whatnot. We've seen that for a couple of years, but we don't get to see the all black throwbacks as much. And so, it's a nice little treat, to sort of put it in there and throw it in there to mix things up. So I'm a fan of those as well.
Yeah, all black everything is always a good thing. Thanks to our everydayers for making the Atlanta Football Party first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons for your second listen, and be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you tomorrow on the Atlanta Football Party, the Dogs edition.